I recently had the opportunity of being a guest on a Native American reservation, a Lakota Sioux reservation. When I was there, I learned from and I learned about the Lakota Sioux. When I arrived, it was late in the evening, and I went to go meet my contact, an elder who I'll refer to as Marianne. She was overseeing the home and had access to the home that I was going to be staying in. And later, we became good friends. The first thing that she said to me was, "Justin, I hope you're okay with staying by yourself." Thinking that she was joking, I smiled and said, "Of course, why would you ask?" And she said, "Well, the home that you're going to be staying in has a frequent visitor, a spirit named Ibez. For the record, I'm not a big fan of ghosts, but being that was my first 15 minutes on the reservation, I said, I should do my best to keep it cool. I smiled and said, "Oh yeah, no problem." After a brief tour of the house, I noticed Marianne was heading for the door, and so I asked her a question in the calmest voice that I could muster. I said, "Maybe you could tell me a little bit more about what you meant about this spirit, and how would you suggest someone would handle a situation like this?" She said, "Yes. Well, her name is Ibez, and she won't hurt you. She won't hurt you. She's just curious. She's actually kind of friendly." What happened was, a few years ago, there was an accident next door, and during the remodeling of this house, they had seen Ibez peering through the window. They had also seen her in and around the house pretty often. And, you should know, and here's the kicker, she tends to visit men more than she visits women. And then she said, "Sleep tight, turn around," and close the door behind her. What I come to find out after this long sleepless night was that Marianne was teaching me a very important lesson. I woke the next day and I spoke to some friends, and then I spoke to Marianne, and I found out that everything the Lakota do is spiritual. Everything has to do with the spirit world and prayer. When the Lakota pray, which happens at the beginning and end of almost every event, there is this intentional entering into the spirit world of their ancestors, to pray with and to pray for their ancestors. Even if you look at this sacred ceremony called Anishinaabe, it's a women's coming-of-age ceremony. Women introduce themselves to their community by stepping back and introducing all their ancestors that stand behind them. Figuratively, but in a very real sense, literally. A second major lesson that I learned while I was out there is this idea of relationships, and unity. When you see two Lakota meeting each other off reservation, the first thing they'll do is they'll ask each other, "What's your family name? What community are you from?" And this is more than just an exercise to be able to say, "Hey, look, we're from the same community," but rather it's a real and strong tool for unity. Once family relations are established, there's a responsibility to and a responsibility for that person. You can trust them with your life because they are family. Believe it or not, this idea of relations also impacts how you select teepees, select teepee poles for the creation of teepees. You don't just go and cut down 15 of the straightest trees, but rather you go and find a singular bunch of trees, a same family of trees. And before you cut them down, you offer up a prayer, something to the effect of, "Just as you've been strong and kept your family safe, we ask that you stay strong and keep our family safe." And then you can cut the tree down. So as you see, relations goes beyond just human relations, but also relations with nature and the environment. So I share with you these two stories because I want to suggest that there are different ways of understanding reality. Let me give you some broader examples. Even the way indigenous people understand or plug into reality differs. For instance, If you look at Western academic traditions, they're premised on this idea of ontology. Ontology simply is, what is reality and what is my connection to that reality, or my connection with that? Central to ontology is this idea of reason. Plato held that you can theorize from ideal forms and use reason to unlock the mysteries of objects, concepts. Aristotle said that in order to live a full, healthy, and fulfilling human life, you must use reason. Even a central theme in a conversation in ontology is this idea that what I see, and therefore think and reason, is it real or is it an illusion? This has become known as Cartesian anxiety. Now let's contrast that to how many indigenous peoples look to the stars to understand and plug into their reality. The Lakota Sioux look to the stars to understand when to plant and when to harvest. The Big Dipper, it looks like a pan. If it is flat, as if it were on a stove, that's indicative of the hot season. If it's tilted as if it were pouring out water, it's indicative of the rainy season. Even where the Lakota come from is said to have come from the stars, an arrow that was shot down. And when this earthly existence ends, the spirit goes back up to the stars, through the Milky Way and back to the Great Spirit. Even religions have offered a different way of understanding reality in terms of relationships. Jesus came with a message of unity not just for the Jews, but also for the Gentiles. Muhammad came to a fractured, divisive, and warring Arabic peninsula and created a single, unified, peaceful tribe. And now Baha'u'llah has said all humanity is one human family, extended it even further. This idea of reality in terms of relations can also be seen in modern philosophy. Princeton philosopher Peter Singer has this great theory called expanding circles of care. Evolutionarily, we started out just learning how to take care of ourselves and our family, then our village, then our tribe, our nation state. And today, in an era of interconnectedness, it's the whole world. International relations has also had scholars that have pushed people to view the world in a different light. A central theme in international relations, which is my field, is power, almost to a fixation. I think the study of power is important because if you understand what power looks like and how it operates, you can also understand how injustice looks like and how it operates. Traditionally, power has been understood as coercive power. This literally means to be able to push someone to do something they wouldn't otherwise do. This way has to do with military force and might. This conceptualization, as well as structural and institutional, are the three major conventional ways that you would understand power. But there's a fourth way of understanding. It's called productive power. Productive power sees power as being fluid and ever-present. It urges scholars to look at how things are understood, how they're conceived, and even how attitudes are changed and formed. It focuses on the margins, the marginalized voices. If you want to understand more about a center of power, logic would tell you that if you have a center, you must have a margin. And by studying that margin, you can better understand the limitations of the center. I'll give you an example. If an artist comes to you and draws for you an object, you don't take that object and put it right in front of your face and just look in the middle, but rather you zoom out and you look at the edges. Maybe over here, the line is really thin, versus over here, it's thick. Down here, they don't meet, there's a gap. Or maybe somewhere you can see the erasures and you can see lines that were previously drawn. This is to say that if you zoom into the edges, the margins, you can better understand the paradoxes, the puzzles, and the ruptures. You can better understand where the object begins and where it ends, as well as its limitations. Productive power differs significantly from the first three forms of power. It has allowed scholars to ask new questions. So what does this mean? I've told you a bit about ontology, cosmology. I've told you about international relations and religion. What does it mean? I'll share with you a story about President Obama and a friend that I'll call Beatrice. President Obama came and spoke to Lakota country early in my trip. And as you all may well know, President Obama has done a lot of positive things for indigenous people in the US, so he was welcomed to great applause. I was speaking to Beatrice, and we were talking about this trip, and she was welling up, and her voice was trembling. And she recalled a time when President Obama said something to the effect of, "In the United States, every man, woman, and child should have access to the American dream. No matter if you were born on a reservation or off a reservation, we should all have access to the American dream." Then she said, "What if I don't want the American dream? Is it wrong to say that? What if I want something more? When I look at that flag, I see the blood of my ancestors, the unrecognized spilled blood of my ancestors. What if I don't want a world of jealousy, of greed, of judgment? What if I don't want a world of debt, having to work 3 jobs just to make ends meet? What if I don't want a world that squeezes every ounce of resources out of every individual as well as the earth? What if I want something more? What if I want a world of compassion? What if I want a world of love? What if I want a world of care?" I want to thank Marianne for that early lesson that she gave me. I want to thank Beatrice for pushing me to see things in a new light. I also want to thank all those friends on the reservation that opened up their hearts and their homes. And now I'm left with questions. What if we here today want a world that recognizes the spiritual aspects of reality and not just the material aspects of reality? What if we here today want a world that's marked by relationships, and unity, and not individualism and division? I'm here to suggest that there's different ways of understanding reality, but that's not good enough. We have to understand and learn from those different perspectives and allow room at the table for those different perspectives. So to create and recreate our social reality, to create and recreate our American dream in ways that are more just, in ways that are more humane, in ways that are more fulfilling for our children and our ancestors to come. I want to leave you with a quotation from Abdu'l-Baha. "In order to find truth, we must give up our prejudices. If our chalice is full of self, there is no room in it for the water of life. The fact that we imagine ourselves to be right and everybody else to be wrong is the greatest of all obstacles in the path towards unity." Thank you.